We walk through doorways every single day and probably don't give them a second thought. But have you ever stopped to wonder what's actually hiding behind the smooth paint in that perfect fit? Turns out there's a hidden structure, kind of like a wooden skeleton, that makes the whole thing work. Today, we're going to unpack that secret. We all know this look, right? It's that clean, perfectly aligned door that just feels like it's always been part of the wall. It's the finished product, the ideal that we all expect in any building. But getting to this point, achieving this level of precision, it's definitely not as simple as it looks. And yeah, that brings us to the big question. How in the world do you take a precise, factory-made door and fit it flawlessly into what's often a rough, uneven, and let's be honest, imperfect hole in a wall? Because this is the reality. This is the starting point on a real construction site. It's a crude hole in a brick wall, not some precision-engineered slot. So how do you bridge the gap between this chaotic reality and that perfect, finished door?
Well, the answer lies in a really clever secret that makes so much of modern construction possible.
It turns out there's a middleman, a hidden wooden structure that gets installed way early in the process. Its entire job is to create a perfect, stable, and totally square foundation for the final door, long before that fancy door ever shows up on site.
And this hidden middleman, this unsung hero of the construction site, has a name. It's called the premark, or as we'll call it for this explainer, the subframe. And here it is. This is our skeleton. Now I know it might just look like a simple wooden rectangle, but this structure right here is the key to everything. It's the elegant solution to that messy problem of the rough wall opening. So what is it exactly? Well, a subframe is a simple wooden structure, usually made of something inexpensive like pine or fir. The bricklayer puts it directly into the wall opening to provide crucial support and, more importantly, a solid anchor point for the final, more delicate door frame that comes later. Okay, so now we know why it exists. Let's break down what it actually is. Let's take a look at its anatomy. Every subframe is made up of a few core parts. You've got 2 vertical uprights, that's the maintenance. Then there's 1 horizontal crosspiece at the top, the traverser. And then you've got these crucial diagonal braces, the travis, that keep the whole thing perfectly square while it's being installed. Finally, you have these little metal clips, the gaffes metallics, and those are for anchoring it securely into the brickwork. And this illustrates a couple of those details perfectly. Look at the left. You can see that strong fork joint connecting the uprights to the crosspiece. It's a simple but really effective piece of woodworking. And then on the right, you can see one of those metal clips already embedded in the wood, just ready to be cemented into the wall. Now, this is what I think is so cool. It's a tiny detail that has a huge impact. See, the uprights have a small saw cut made at a very specific height. This isn't a mistake, it's a hidden instruction. It tells the bricklayer exactly where the finished floor is going to be, which makes sure the door is installed at the absolute perfect height. It's just genius in its simplicity. In construction, precision is everything. This diagram really shows you just how many layers and measurements are involved. It's like a careful dance between the width of the wall, the subframe, and the final door. Getting these dimensions perfect is critical, and it all comes down to one tiny, tiny measurement. Just 1 centimeter, that's it. That is the ideal gap, or franquicia, that needs to be left on the top and sides, right between the installed subframe and the final door frame. This tiny bit of wiggle room allows for adjustments and ensures a perfect snug fit. So, how does this essential piece of wood get from just raw lumber to a perfectly placed frame inside a wall? Let's trace its journey. The fabrication process is a sequence of really precise steps. It starts with trimming the raw planks, then they're cut to the right width, and then all 4 sides are planed smooth. After that, they're cut to their final length, the joints are machined into them, and finally, the frame is assembled, using glue and staples to attach those important braces. And this isn't happening in some dusty old workshop. Today, the whole process is highly automated. Industrial machines, just like this one, handle the cutting, the planing, and the machining. This ensures every single subframe is made to exact and consistent standards, every single time. And here is the result on the worksite. The subframe is in, it's perfectly plumb and level, and it's anchored securely into the wall. It's now ready for the plasterers to come in and finish the wall right up to the edge of the wood. This creates that clean, perfect opening for the final door. But it wasn't always done this way. The subframe is actually a pretty modern and efficient evolution in how we do construction.
This chart breaks it down perfectly. So, with the modern subframe system, a rough, cheap frame is installed early on by the bricklayer. This protects the final, expensive door frame, which gets installed much later. The traditional direct frame method? The complete opposite. The beautiful finished door frame was installed directly into the wall, exposing it to damage from cement, paint, bumps, you name it, during the entire construction process. The modern way is just so much faster, safer, and more efficient. And this quote really sums up the old way of doing things. The carpenter had to do all this custom work right there on site, a much slower process, with a super high risk of damaging the final expensive frame. The subframe system completely changed all of that. And of course, the evolution continues. Today, to make transport even easier, subframes often come as kits. So instead of a big pre-assembled frame, you get all the pieces in a box, ready to be put together right there on the worksite. So when you strip it all back, the subframe is truly the unsung hero of the doorway. It's this invisible piece of craftsmanship and planning. A simple wooden skeleton that just quietly does its job, making sure the beautiful, finished product we all see and use every day is nothing less than perfect. And that leaves us with one final thought. The next time you walk through a doorway, maybe you'll pause for just a second and think about the hidden skeleton inside the wall, that simple, brilliant subframe that's holding it all together.